Good afternoon, Pankaj. Warm welcome to you on behalf of APAC News Network. APAC News Network, we are a media conglomerate and handling media research. And till now, our forte or strength has been government, healthcare, and education. These were the three verticals, and in fact, we have been one of the very few B2B medias in India who have even hosted Prime Minister Modi in an event. Plus, we have been interacting with the top bureaucrats of both central and the states, healthcare, the hospital CXOs, as well as large educationists. Now we are also expanding the focus and trying to leverage amongst the enterprise and IT, and trying to leverage our strength in government, healthcare, and education, and cross leverage with enterprise and IT, as well as BFSI. Yeah. So best would be if you can start with what has been the genesis of EnableX, and then talk about updating on the portfolio.
Great. Rajnish, thanks for having me. So it's great connecting with you here. So EnableX is a communication platform as a services company. So we've been into existence for almost 4 years now, and globally headquartered out of Singapore, with presence in India, Japan, and Europe as well. So, as a solution provider, EnableX provides communication APIs as a service. So, this is the industry called CPaaS, or Communication Platform as a Service, where we offer APIs and SDKs for voice, video, and SMS to enable organizations and application developers to embed real-time communication capabilities into their solutions. So when I talk about APIs, I'm talking about things like capability to embed real-time one-to-one or many-to-many calling into different applications and solutions. The applications can be on the web, they can be on the mobile, and they allow to create more interactive, real-time, engaging solutions.
More importantly, if you can explain briefly what are the use cases in those verticals.
Sure. So Rajnish, basically, in the last couple of years, we've all seen how, because of the pandemic, everything has moved remote, and people are working more and more in remote locations, right? So what we're seeing here is more use cases or industries, specifically in the healthcare side, education side, contact centers, retail industry. These are financial services. So these are four or five industries where, or verticals, where we've seen maximum traction. So if you take use cases, so if I were to talk about fintech, for example, video-based KYC is now a standard practice. So government and RBI has also allowed KYC to be done remotely, and one of the major applications where we've seen a lot of traction and work with a lot of customers is in the whole video KYC process. So we work with some of the biggest companies in this space, including payment banks and various other financial service providers, where we enable the KYC process over our video platform for onboarding of new customers. Similar in the healthcare space, telemedicine is one area where remote doctor-patient consult is something which we've seen a lot of traction in. Education for sure. So a whole lot of private coaching, virtual classrooms, corporate trainings, all these kind of area applications are extensively being built using the EnableX APIs. We're also seeing a lot of use cases in the HR and recruitment industry, where employee interviews, employee screening, employee onboarding is being done through video, and large enterprises are embedding our video APIs into their talent management solutions, their application tracking systems, their HRMS systems, and enabling and facilitating better interaction between employees and the organization. So, multiple use cases when it comes to video, voice. Then we work in the SMS space as well, where our SMS APIs are again used extensively in the financial services space for OTPs or multi-factor authentication kind of applications. In the voice services side, we're seeing use cases for inside society management softwares, for example, where if you have a visitor coming onto your door or on the society gate, the application calls your mobile phone to connect you directly with with the visitor or the security at your gates. So different applications across industries.
So, what would you count as your USPs or differentiators basically, and which sort of will attract customers from all verticals?
Sure. So Renish, I think fundamental difference that we provide vis-a-vis the more traditional collaboration solutions is the ability to embed the communication capability in a seamless way into existing applications and workflows. So while you have a whole lot of conferencing services or video collaboration products, they don't really integrate seamlessly into any application. So today you can always get onto a WhatsApp call or a Google Meet call, but they don't get integrated or connected with your applications. So then you're talking in silos. You've got different solutions, and you use them. However, when you consume APIs from a CPaaS platform like ours, you don't have to change your business model or your application. It becomes a seamless, integrated offering to the end customer, which essentially gives them a better end user experience. So, if you're doing a healthcare thing or if you're looking at education, so you don't need to have a separate LMS system or a school management system and a separate collaboration system. Everything gets integrated into a single learning management system. Similarly, when we see healthcare, it's the same thing. We are integrated with multiple hospital management systems with different clients of ours. So the consultation happens from within the system. So a doctor doesn't have to go into a different application to see the patient record and a different application to have the call. So it gives a more holistic end-to-end experience from the end customer perspective. So that's a fundamental difference between the traditional or the web-based conferencing applications vis-a-vis communication APIs from Enablex. Further, then we allow, because of using APIs, it allows you to integrate seamlessly. You can pick up and create your own UIs, the end user experience, exactly the way you believe your customer should have it. So it's not a standard, one thing that fits all. It's a very, very customized, highly dynamic and scalable platform, which ultimately helps a developer or an application provider give give the right level of engagement and experience to the end customers. Now we can also go into features in detail, and we can then talk about how our capabilities around video analytics, emotion analysis, facial detection, whole lot of capabilities around video, which differentiates us and also helps our customers deliver a better experience and a smarter solution to the end customers.
So one, I'd like to know. One is your platform. Does it allow a virtual event or running a virtual business operation, which are use cases of slightly larger scale? Will it allow that kind of thing? And two is on the security front,
Sure.
especially since you are connecting from different kinds of networks. So how do you look after the security part?
Sure. So Ranish, both very valid points, and events is one area again which I missed in terms of the use cases. But we've seen extensively a whole lot of events being conducted or event applications, virtual event applications being created on our using our APIs and platform. So that's one of our USPs again, our ability to support up to 1,000 people into a single collaboration session, and we also support or have the ability to stream a session directly to a YouTube or a Facebook Live or a Vimeo or any streaming platforms. So for example, the conversation we are having right now, we support our APIs allow you to take this session and directly stream it onto using an RTMP stream onto any of these platforms. So virtual events is definitely an area where we have a lot of customers, and it allows both for interactive sessions with up to 1,000 people, and then take the stream out for a much larger audience through any of the streaming platforms. So yes, definitely on the streaming side, yes, we do we support that. Now coming to the second part with respect to security. So there are multiple levels of securities that is available the moment when you use an API platform like ours. So on one side, when you're consuming our APIs, our customers do not share any user data with us because that is managed at the customer application level. So at any given time, we are not really accessing or getting any customer data. So one level of security is that we are not exposed to the data. So hence, we do not expose it further at any given time. We've seen recently Zoom settling cases with in the US for privacy or they sharing data. In a platform like ours, we don't access customer data, so it's totally secure with the developer. On the other side, for our video platform, we use WebRTC as a underlying technology stack, and where all communication is encrypted. So all your communication happening on our platform, irrespective of the browser you're coming from or mobile device you're coming from, all communication is secure and encrypted. And we support recording, which again we encrypt. So we support encryption of data in transmission and encryption of data when sitting or stored on our platform. So there are high levels of security that we apply at different levels to ensure that at all times the customer this has the highest level of security when using our platform.
What is the business model or pricing mechanism that you work in specific use cases? More or less, what is the standardized business model and the pricing mechanism you have? And the second part is more in terms of that is a business model question. And the second is on the operational front. Um, how from the user organization, how do they integrate operationally with you as the solution provider?
Sure. So Rajesh, from the commercial model or the business model, now we are very, very unique in terms of our offering globally, because we are probably the only CPaaS platform provider in the world today, which has both the cloud-based offer or a SaaS do-it-yourself kind of an offer, as well as we support complete on-prem or hybrid deployments when it comes to enterprise customers or customers where due to data localization laws or data local compliance laws, we have the ability to deploy our entire platform on a private cloud or even on-prem, for that matter, right? Or any combination thereof, hybrid, private, on-prem, or public cloud. So the commercial models also differ. When we offer our services as a low-touch, self-service model, it's a totally do-it-yourself kind of a thing. You go online, you subscribe, and typical pricing models are basically consumption-based. So the standard pricing would be based on number of minutes of video calls or voice calls done on our platform. So, for example, this call that we are having right now, if you and me are in a conversation for almost 20 minutes, then it is two people in the call for 20 minutes, which adds up to 40. And there is a per minute rate applied on that. So that's the typical model when it comes to standard customers who go and online, subscribe to our services online and consume our services. Now, when you have large enterprise customers or when we work with customers in the contact center space, for example, or video KYC, for example, there the pricing models can vary, and those are custom, and we support those kind because we've developed our entire pricing and the billing engine in house. So in case of contact centers, the pricing is typically per agent per month. Or in terms when we work with our fintech partners or customers, the pricing can also be based on per transaction, so per KYC done on our platform. So with strategic customers and specific requirements, we are able to customize the pricing models. However, the standard models are more based on per minute kind of a thing. Okay, so that's where the basic on the commercial side it is. However, when you have specific use cases like private deployments for a large bank or with a telco, then we work with our global SI partners, etc. And there the pricing models are very, very different. They are dependent on the kind of deployment required, the kind of architecture being done, the sizing of the infrastructure, the overall volume. So different models. Those become then very typical custom software solution models kind of a pricing. Okay. Now coming to the operational part, which is the second part that you said, we offer the ability for our customers to directly go online and subscribe to our services. So we basically, as a developer, you go online, you create a project on our portal, You create an API key, and you have everything, developer documentation, sample codes, all the tools available which can help a developer get started with no time. So essentially, a developer can just go online, do a OTP and an email verification, and they have everything available for them to get started. So there they just create a project, like I said, generate the keys which they can embed in their code, and those keys are used to authenticate them with our platform, and then they can use our sample codes or developer documentation and all the SDKs across web and mobile platforms to integrate our capabilities into their applications. In that regard, very recently we've also launched a very flexible and a very unique low-code embed capability to adding video calling capabilities, whether it's one-to-one or many-to-many, into applications with a single line of code. So that's something that while a few other providers have it in the market, but we are very unique there, as we allow a whole lot of customization through a UI itself to generate that video embed. And that's something which is very unique to us. And that reduces the developer effort from a few weeks to maybe 20 minutes or maybe an hour at best to have everything ready which can be integrated. A lot of our effort is going on towards helping our customers journey easy and help them integrate our capabilities much faster into their solutions without requiring too much of coding and too much of customization.
So can you briefly explain again the use cases of some of these features, and more importantly, how have they been received?
Sure. So
How
Rajesh, that's really exciting. So the kind of work we are doing on the facial analysis, emotion analysis, sentiment analysis is very exciting. And we are a video first platform. Okay, so a lot of our engineering effort, a lot of our innovations, everything, a lot of that focuses on video side. So this whole emotion analysis and what we call Face AI as our branding is basically around real-time analysis of a person's facial expressions and emotions while they're in a conversation. And the beauty of that is it's fully GDPR compliant. It totally runs on the browser side of the participant, and no personal data or images of the user are sent back to our servers. So it can analyze what is your interest level, what is your attention level. It can also detect if there are multiple people in the frame at the same time. We're seeing multiple use cases. We recently started implementing this in a recruitment application with one of the biggest IT companies in the world, where they have their own in-house recruitment platform, and they're integrating our Face AI capabilities to assess both the candidate and their emotional responses to different kind of questions that are being asked, or different kind of at various stages of the interview, as well as assessing or looking at the bias of the interviewer. A lot of times we don't realize, but when interviewers are doing video interviews, they tend to switch off their videos and kind of get distracted with other stuff. So the AI engine can actually track the attention level of the interviewer as well during the entire course of the interview. So HR is one area that we are seeing a lot of traction for Face AI. Another very interesting use case is about skill in the skill assessment or testing areas, where when people are taking online self-assessment tests or any kind of test, the Face AI is used for proctoring to track the attention level of the candidates who are taking the test. So it can track things like if I'm looking away from the screen for 30 seconds, for example, and these are different thresholds you can set. So if that happens, then suddenly the system can trigger an alert to the other side. So, it can be seen as the person is looking at another screen while taking a test. So it could be constituted as cheating. Or when you're doing a webinar, you talked about events earlier, when you're doing a webinar like this, a webinar the AI engine can track the attention of the participants, and it can help devise a better rating of the presenter. And if I'm conducting a webinar and I can I can get a feeler of the attention level of the viewers, it gives me a lot of feedback in real time, and I can accordingly adjust my messaging, the communication, so on and so forth. So Face AI is very exciting, and we're seeing a lot of traction across industries. Now we've seen education, we are seeing training, we are seeing recruitment, we are seeing virtual events. So a lot is happening in that space, and we are really bullish on this.
So these developers basically so build applications, and do they white label it, or how is that model with these
So
developers?
see, we are APIs, right? So these
Okay.
develop. So for example, they have a customer who's for whom they're building a ed tech product or a fintech product. So the solution is in the name of the end customer, but underlying video APIs are ours. So our name will not come up in the front.
Like to understand is in terms of the you said the customer outreach, the customers you are reaching out, but how is that customer outreach done? What is the go to market model that you have been following?
So Ranish, we basically have three pillars of our GTM strategy. One is the digital, which is our traditional online marketing and SEO, SCM, etc., and which essentially attracts the SME customer base, right? So and that's very global in nature. So today we have customers across the world. We work with customers in the US, we work with customers in Latin America, we've got customers in Southeast Asia, we've got customers in Middle East, we've got customers in Africa. So a lot of those customers are through our good digital marketing strategies where we do campaigns, we do activities, so on and so forth. Then we also have a direct sales team which targets basically strategic accounts for us, which where we work with SIs and GSI, global SIs, large SIs, and large product companies. And third is our strategy of working with service providers like telcos. So we believe telcos are reinventing themselves. You would be seeing a whole lot of telcos now coming up with their digital strategies, launching platforms, etc. So we are currently working with a couple of telcos, not only in India but even in Middle East and Southeast Asia, where we are working on deploying our platform with them, and then they offering our platform as a service to their end customers. Then we work. So basically, we either do our digital marketing, which is through the traditional all the online methods. Then we have a direct sales team targeting enterprises and product companies, and then we have a very focused strategic partnership team which targets global SIs and telcos. So these are broadly the three focus areas or our target segments where we work with.
Going forward for the next few quarters, what are going to be your key focus areas? That can be in terms of products and services and solutions expansion,
So
geographical expansion, or other business development.
Rajesh, three, four things are there are three, four areas where a lot of our focus is. We've invested almost 4 years now building the platform, and now the platform is in a great shape now. We've got very good feedback, etc. So we are now going very aggressive in the market with our targeting telcos on one side, and like I mentioned, we have a couple of telco engagements already going. So a lot of our focus will be on building partnerships with service providers and SIs. And we are in a unique position because our platform can be deployed on-prem or on the telco infrastructure, so that telco can leverage their own data centers and networks to deliver these services. So on one side, the strategic focus will continue, and a lot of growth will come from that area. Second, on the product side, I talked about our low-code embed. So we believe that what we have launched and how we are expanding and building on that will be a very unique and probably a world's first real visual builder for video APIs. So a lot of innovation is being done, very specific, unique features, including our Face AI integration into the low-code embed. And we believe we want developers to be able to add video capabilities in 20 minutes using our APIs. So product innovation, a lot of focus on building the product in a manner that developers have minimal effort required from their side to add capability. So innovation in that area. We are also going to add, apart from video analytics, very soon we'll also be adding AI capabilities on the voice services side as well. So on the product side, there will be a lot of work on improving the end user experience, reduce the effort and complexity at the hand of the developer, and make the entire platform smarter and smarter as we move along. Video is also very bandwidth heavy. So one of the things that we've been working on is to support better quality video on lower bandwidths, especially when it comes to some of the countries, including India, where the mobile networks are still not the greatest. So we've done a lot of work on making video continue to work on lower bandwidths. So innovation, a lot of work on improving the quality of the video experience on lower quality networks is one key focus we are working on. Geographically, we are expanding aggressively. We're already present in Southeast Asia, India, Japan, parts of Europe. So we are now expanding our sales teams in Europe and North America over the next 2 quarters as well. So global expansion, strategic partnerships with large service providers and telcos, and product-wise making the end user experience even better than what it is now will be the three key areas where we'll focus on.
How are you managing now in terms of the quality of the video experience? Because in a lot of places, and especially since a lot of people are now working from home or from anywhere, uh, the quality of bandwidth is still there is a challenge in India. And the other question is even the quality of power. The power infrastructure is also a challenge.
Yeah.
So, keeping that in mind, currently, how are your solutions handling those challenges?
So Rajnish, again, because we've developed our own platform end to end, right? So we built and we knew these challenges from the beginning, having been in the Indian market for long. So we've actually done a lot of optimization the way we handle media. So our technology is client server kind of an architecture and not a peer-to-peer network. So we built our own media servers where a lot of intelligence has been built in to handle in real time, understand the bandwidth from each of the participants or everybody who's in the session, and automatically adjust, reduce the resolutions, and we are able to run video up to as low a bandwidth as 100 kbps today. And then we again have smartness built in where if bandwidth goes below a particular threshold, we kind of give priority to voice and pause the video so that communication can continue, and the engines keep on listening at all time, and once you recover your bandwidth, the system will again bring your video back. So multiple levels of effort has been put in to make sure video works even on lower bandwidth environments. And I think as things change and 5G is going to come in, overall bandwidth scenario will improve. So I am positive that while we have challenges today, I think the infrastructures will improve and video consumption will keep going on. And the way we have done it and the way we are continuously innovating in that area, we are able to service our customers even on not so good bandwidth environments.
In fact, another thing about this is probably once the impact of pandemic wanes or reduces, we are likely to not see completely offline mode. It will most likely remain a hybrid mode
Yeah.
where offline and virtual will combine. So that gives more scope for solution like yours to work out.
Yeah. So Rajnish, I think over the last 2 years, we have realized that work can continue remotely. You know,
Exactly.
earlier it was I need to go and meet somebody. Today I have signed deals which are worth $500,000 without even meeting the customer once, which was not the case 2 years back. So I think there has been that shift in the mindset. People have become more comfortable, and organizations have accepted that things can happen remotely. So it, like you said, it will be hybrid. Some people will come to work, some people will come partially to work. Organizations will also save some cost because of it. Employees will also have better work-life balance at times. So I think you're absolutely right. Video is here to stay. My favorite quote always is video is the next voice. So everything that we do on voice will move to video. We've now become comfortable. There was a time when it was always an audio conference. Nobody used to do video conference. Now I don't remember in the last 3 years if I've joined a single audio conference.
Exactly.
Right. So that transition has happened. People have accepted it now. Right. So real-time video communication will continue to grow, and it will move beyond just a typical collaboration products in enterprises, but even consumer to consumer, business to consumer applications will continue to use video extensively. Retail shopping we are working with clients now where when they set up e-commerce platforms or e-commerce shops for brands, they're actually adding video capability that while you're browsing, if you want to talk to a salesperson at the store, at a click of a button, you will get connected to a person at the store and they can actually show you the physical product in front of you.
Okay.
Right. And that use case is also, in fact, that's one very interesting use case on the Face AI part, where retail online websites are actually looking at adding Face AI into their application so that when you're browsing the products, they can assess your emotions when you're looking at a particular product and customize your rest of the experience.